Hey everybody, welcome to Spanish Whites class. I'm so excited for tonight. This is absolutely one of my favorite subjects to talk about and to drink. So yay for Spanish wines and Spanish whites particularly. If you're here in Madison today, it is gorgeous, which we deserve after a cold, rainy day yesterday. It's absolutely beautiful outside right now. So these wines feel particularly appropriate to be drinking. And if you're not in Madison, I hope that wherever you are, at least the wines bring you joy. I can't talk about the weather or anything else going on in the world right now, but let's at least focus on delicious wine. So if this is your first time joining us for a virtual class, thanks so much. And if you're coming back for one, that is great. It's so wonderful to see so many people registering for these classes. As we go along, we're going to change up the format slightly from our previous class. If you have questions as we're going, please just feel free to enter them in the chat bar. There is the ask your question function at the bottom of the screen, but let's just use the chat. It works just beautifully. So I hope that you guys will ask lots of questions, give us comments. If you're drinking along with us, please let me know what you think of the wines as we taste them. It really, I try to make this as much like our real classes, not that this isn't real class, sorry, our in-person classes as possible, where I do want to hear from folks and I want to get those questions. So it's so great to see so many of you saying hi, so thanks. So we're also going with a slightly different format tonight where we're going to do 3 wines instead of more. That came from a lot of feedback that I got from people that having 5 open bottles of wine is maybe more than you're used to. So totally fair, and I appreciate the feedback. So we're going with 3 wines. I have in the chat the order that we're going in. So we're going to start with the Chacalina, which is probably the one that's the least familiar to everybody. So we'll start there in just a few minutes. We're going to cover some fundamental information before that. And I think that's all I need to say before we kind of dig in and get started. So let's do it. I'm sharing a screen. There we go. So bear with me just a second. There we go. All right, so just some fundamental information about Spanish wine, generally speaking. There are 150 appellations within Spain, and appellations are used in all wine countries around the world, saying that wines come from certain places. So here in the US, the appellation might be California, it might be Central Coast, or it might say something specific like Napa Valley, or even more specific than that. So in Spain, their way they break it down is within these 5 tiers that you can see there. I give you this information not to make you feel like you need to nerd out and know this. Do you guys not have audio? Can people hear me? Everybody else can hear me. So Haley, if you can't hear me, that's something on your end. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, I'm glad everybody else can hear me. And you're sitting outside. That's so great. It's a little tinny. Somebody's saying you have to click on the screen to unmute, perhaps. See if that works. I'm going to keep on going. Hello from upstairs about the wine shop. I'm not at the wine shop. I am in what is normally my studio and writing space, like my yoga studio and writing space at my house, which might be why it's a little tinny. I apologize. Okay, so let's keep going. So this appellation information here, like I said, it's not here to make you feel intimidated or like you have to memorize things. It's here kind of as a reference point, just so that you kind of have an understanding of the different ways that Spanish wine will be classified and the kinds of things that you're going to see perhaps on labels or maybe on wine lists at restaurants when that day finally blessedly comes. So the things that you that I will be talking about today are going to kind of live in this area right here, the DOs. And that, again, is kind of the idea that wines come from a certain place, and that grapes are going to be grown in these places that aren't grown elsewhere, that they're going to start to take on flavor profiles that you can get familiar with, and you can start to learn maybe what regions you like. In addition to grapes, it goes hand in hand because they're deciding what grapes can be grown to have the DO label on it, or DO classification on the label. So it kind of goes hand in hand. If you figure out you like a region, you're gonna like the grapes that are grown in that region. Hope that makes sense. There are 400 varietals, about 400-ish varietals grown in Spain. But what I think is really interesting is that almost 80% of them are only 80% of the wine produced comes from 20 varietals. So if you're used to drinking Italian wine and it's like, you know, every region is a new adventure and you kind of have to learn so many different grapes, Spain is a little easier to kind of get your feet wet and start to really understand what's going on, because you really, if you learn those 20 grapes, then you'll have your really good fundamentals. The classifications are for Spanish wine, generally speaking, not just white wine. So if you're joining me next week for Spanish Reds, you're going to see this information again. But yes, it applies to all Spanish wine. So within those 20 core varietals, there really are 4 main white varietals that the bulk of the white wine made in Spain is going to be made from. So Albariño, if there is a Spanish white grape that I have found most people are familiar with, it is Albariño. And that's where we're going to end our show tonight. The other grapes are Verdejo, which we will not be tasting tonight, but if you are interested in Verdejo, I adore it and would happily talk to you about it. And we can, you know, I don't know, do Spanish Whites 2.0 or something someday. And then Verdejo and Viura are 2 of the other main grapes, and we'll be tasting a blend. If you're tasting the wines that we had, it is mostly Verdejo with a little bit of Viura. If you went out and found Verdejo for yourself, awesome. It may or may not have some Viura in it, but it's really, we're using it to talk about the Verdejo more than the Viura anyway. So, oops, that's not what I meant to do, guys, sorry. Okay, so quick rundown of what you can expect to see on a Spanish wine label. It's going to include some pretty basic information that you would expect to see, things like the name of the winery, the vintage, you know, what year the grapes were grown. And then it's going to have the region. So in this case, this is the DO. There you go, you can kind of see it there. That's the name of the region. It's not always going to have the varietal on it. So in this case, it does have it on it. It says Albariño right there. That is the grape, and it does have it on there. That's not necessarily true. If you're, you know, if you have the wines that I'm going to be tasting, you can look at those other 2 labels and say, I don't see the grape name anywhere, and that is accurate. They're not required to have the varietal on there. The aging designation, that really comes up more with reds than whites, and it doesn't really apply to the wines that we're going to talk about tonight. So you can kind of just ignore that a little bit. But I really did want to kind of drive home the varietal thing, that some labels will have it on there. They won't always, and that can be a bit confusing and a bit of a pain point. So kind of learning, I'd say either the region or the grape, if you want to know both things, that's awesome. But, you know, most customers, when they're talking to us about Spanish whites, know that they like Albariño. They don't necessarily say, I like wines from Rias Baixas, probably because to say Rias Baixas is a little challenging. But, you know, it isn't necessarily going to be called out for you. And again, if you're joining us next week for Spanish Reds, we'll talk about that when it comes time for Rioja. People don't necessarily know what grapes are in Rioja, and that's what I'm here for. So we'll get there. All right. Just a little map for you guys so that you can kind of see where we are. So there are white wines grown in all of the major regions, but the majority of white wine comes from these two areas. So this area up here is referred to as green Spain. And the person who made that map is so wonderful because they actually turned to green, which is great. And 2 of our 3 wines tonight are from that area. And then the purple area, we're going to be tasting wine from Rueda. So it's kind of like in the center here. So we're kind of hanging out in the northwestern corner. I scheduled this class at this time here in late April because you all or other people who took classes asked for Spanish wine class. And I'm happy to oblige anytime to talk about Spanish wine. But 2 years ago today, I was hanging out like right here and slowly made my way up and through Portugal and came back to Madrid, wherever Madrid may be. So it feels particularly close to my heart to be getting to talk about this right now. I was flipping through pictures. So I'm happy to regale you with tales if that's of interest to anybody out there. All right, so we're gonna start. Are there any questions before we kind of dig in and get started with wine? I'll pause. This is like I'll take a drink of water. Okay. No, okay. Oh, thanks for the encouragement. All right. So we're going to start with a grape called Honduras. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. I don't expect that many folks to know this grape. It's definitely not, Chardonnay. Wines that are made from this grape are grown, to my knowledge, exclusively in the Basque region of Spain. Bear with me, I'll just go back to our map for just a hot second. This little part up here. If you're not familiar with the Basque area, first of all, you should be. There's the city of San Sebastian right there. It's right by the sea. It's gorgeous. They have amazing food and a pretty wild political history. I was in on that same trip, we started in Rioja, and we were on the other side of the Sierra Cantabria Mountains from San Sebastian. And I said something to one of the winery owners about being Spanish, and she made a very strong declaration that no, she is not Spanish, she is Basque. And those are not the same thing. And it was very interesting then to kind of have that be one of the first visits we went on, and then to talk to the different folks at wineries in the same area and see who said they were Spanish and who said they were Basque. So again, I got off on a political topic. I was surprised. So Honduras, if you don't know it, if you don't know Chocolina, the flavors and aromas that come out are very prominent citrus. Most often lime, kind of like green. It kind of almost tastes green. If you've had Vinho Verde from Portugal before, this feels like a very close cousin to that. Minerality really, really, really comes out. This area, it's as the Sierra Cantabrias kind of head down towards the sea. So you've got really rocky terrain. The vines are planted on those kind of mountain sides. And then you've just got this wind, with salt in it, kind of blowing over the grapes. So salinity is a big kind of tasting note with Chocolinas, as is just kind of like a general sense of minerality, chalky, all of those words are totally fair game. And kind of herbaceousness also comes out. I think you'll notice, if you haven't started to drink, please do, if you're drinking along with us. Just like the idea of green really kind of comes out again and again. Wines made from this grape are going to come from the regions that I have listed there. And one thing you'll notice, if you have it at home, pour it, and if you don't have it at home, hopefully you can see it here. It's a little spritzy. It has a little effervescence. So not all chocolinas are effervescent. They can be still or they can be lightly spritzy. They're never like full-on bubbles. You know, it's not like cava. It's not real big bubbles, but it's just these tiny little delicate, I think you can see them there in my glass, you know, just that like little tiny bit. And it tingles your tongue. The acidity and the minerality, whether still or sparkling, tingle your tongue enough. But then Amistoy, everything they do has this slight effervescence to it, which I find absolutely delightful. Currently, at the shop, we have white, rosé, and red from them, all of which have really strong minerality and have the same kind of mouthfeel, this kind of just like delightful little tickling your palate, if you will. So I want to hear what you guys think as you taste. I'm glad it's good with cheese popcorn. That makes my day. I really do think, like, you know, oh, I'm so glad. How does it get sparkly? It gets sparkly because, sorry, like I just had like a total brain fart there. My understanding of how they do it is it's a little bit of carbonation. I believe that they bottle it. You know what, Karina, let me double check on this before I start saying it. My understanding is that they're going to do it like a pet nat is where they would bottle it before fermentation would be 100% complete so that it gets like a little spritzy in the bottle. But I will circle back to this and try to make sure that I'm actually, how bubbly is it compared to champagne? Much less bubbly than champagne. I've had people take this wine home, and when I've referred to it as spritzy or effervescent to them, like later on, they haven't caught that. So it's not like bubbly. Oh, people forgot to get their wine. Oh, Erin, I'm sorry. They're just sitting there for you too. You paid and everything. Well, they'll be there tomorrow. You can come back and watch again if you want to drink along. Okay, so I'm hearing that people love the lime and they're enjoying it. And the bubbles are just like so tingly. I'm so glad. I worked for a chef in Washington, D.C. who was obsessed with San Sebastian and all things Spanish and pinchos, and, you know, everything had to be seafood on the plancha kind of thing. And when I first had Chocolina, I'm so glad to see so many of you enjoying this wine, because I gotta be honest, the first time I had it, I was like, I don't know about this. It was like too tart for me. I have since turned into the person who can't get enough, pardon me, acid in their wine. But at the first time I ever tasted it, it was such a shock to my system. I wasn't sure what to make of it. But now I just adore all Chocolinas. Oh no, oh, Kristen, oh my gosh, Kristen has a bottle of the red and not the white. I was so surprised when you said you had a bottle of the white at home. The bottle of red is so delicious, and it's gonna, do you have charcuterie right now? Because the red is really good with that. It's not gonna be so great with your scallops that you're having for dinner later. From a food pairing perspective, Chocolina is really meant for seafood. You know, I mean, they are, you know, feet away from the sea. So anything and everything seafood related, ceviche is kind of like the obvious thing. Sushi, those kinds of things. I realize that you may or may not have access to fresh seafood right now, or might be choosing to not, you know, have seafood. I will say no one has indicated that they don't like this wine, but if this wine feels a little too tart for you, have it with some food if you're not eating and see if it kind of changes your tune a little bit. This level of acidity really does kind of like scream for food, unless you're me. So I'm so glad people are loving the line. Yeah, when I think some of you have joined me for classes before. They're called component tasting, where you have an actual physical item in front of you that the wine then smells or tastes like, and it helps you kind of like, you know, learn like, oh, this is what lime is like. And I've definitely used this specific wine to talk about lime. Yes, save it for red carry out tomorrow. Absolutely. Is Chocolina the one they pour from the pitchers up high? Yes. So let's see if I can do this. So at that same place that I used to work in Washington, D.C., I would pour this wine, actually. And it was either this wine or a different Chocolina that both were spritzy. And in San Sebastian, you guys can totally find awesome videos on YouTube of people pouring from like, you know, here, you guys, you can't see my hands, but like that far apart. So if you want to like, I don't know, go crazy, go Chocolina crazy, you kind of start out closer to the glass and then you can, you know, move it on up and you got to keep pouring. You got to have, you know, it's like a Julia Child moment, just like be confident. And then it really gets bubbly. And it's super fun. So you can do that. It's a fun party trick. I've definitely done that. The other things I want to mention about Chocolina, in addition to being made from this kind of obscure grape, there are other grapes allowed that can be blended in, most notably Sauv Blanc, but it will go by the Basque name and it won't go by the Sauvignon Blanc name. So we've carried some Chocolinas in the past that have been a blend. Can you get a wine class on that technique? Sure. Yeah, sure. Or maybe like an Instagram video. I don't know that it's a whole wine class, but yeah, sure, I can try. What was I gonna say? Oh, that they're low in alcohol. That's the other thing that's like worth noting. If you have this or have a Chocolina that you're drinking, this is 11%. So kind of back to the comparison to Vino Verde, also pretty low in alcohol. It really is intended to be the kind of the aperitif, the kind of beginning of your night, you know, with whatever little snacks you're having. You know, I mean, gosh, in Spain, the beginning of your night at like 9 o'clock, you'd start with this and some snacks and then, you know, have dinner in many hours from now. I'm realizing right now that I don't have a dump bucket up here in my room. So I'm going to sacrifice my water glass and no longer have water because I poured myself that big old glass. Oh yeah, it's not the most exciting label. And Kristen said that, you know, she thought she had this wine. Let's spend a second. I think we have time. Why would I ever dump wine? Well, because I have to keep talking. I have 2 other wines I have to talk about. Yes, you can absolutely watch again, Erin, to answer your question. You can just use this link permanently and you can share it with friends as well. So you can absolutely, yeah, so you can definitely see this again. To go to the label for a hot second. So Amistoy is the name of the winery. And it's not the prettiest thing that you've ever seen, but just if you like look at that picture, that is actually where the winery sits in relation to the ocean. So it's pretty great. Like if you look at pictures, I did not have a chance to visit there. So I don't have personal pictures. I will have some personal pictures next week for Spanish Reds, but alas. Yeah, so Chocolate, your new friend. If any of you remember, it used to be the password for our Wi-Fi at Table Wine. I never intended our password to be something that people couldn't spell. I thought it was my private password. And then I had to make that Wi-Fi public and, you know, spent all my time talking about how to spell chocolate. So yay for Basque wine. I adore it. I can't recommend it enough. Are there regions in Basque Country primarily known for whites? Are these regions? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in the Basque, when you see Chocolina, it's going to most likely be white. It is definitely white wine country. There is some rosé and some red, but it is much, much, much more common than it's white wine. And that's really true of all of the places that we're going to kind of stop along our way. They are white wine places and not red wine places. They're cooler. And for the most part, well, I guess 2 of our 3 are very close to the ocean. So the reds are interesting. We're not going to tackle it in Spanish Reds class because they are kind of, a very small portion of Spanish wine. But the one thing I'll say before we leave it, it's Red Chapelina is made from a descendant grape of Cabernet Franc. So if you like, if you already know you like Cab Franc, or if the idea of something herby and minerally sounds cool to you for red wine, then let's talk about Red Chapelina. We carry 2 in the store right now. Okay, guys, we're gonna keep on trucking because I only scheduled an hour because I was like, an hour for three wines, that'll be perfectly fine. So here we go. We're gonna keep on trucking. So we're moving on to Verdejo. So Verdejo is grown, we're tasting one from Rueda. It is grown in various regions in Spain. It's not kind of totally ubiquitous, but it grows a little bit more easily than our other 2 friends today. And it's often used in what I call good value wines. So those Spanish white wines that you can find for like a few dollars, depending on where you are. Those are often Verdejo blends or 100% Verdejo. When you're in Spain and you're drinking like super cheap white wine at a tapas bar, it most likely would be Verdejo. That it pairs well with carnitas. Oh yeah, it's so good. It's super, super good with tacos. So flavors are citrus. There's a little bit more range here. It's not quite like Honduras, Missouri. It's, a little lime, a little grapefruit, maybe even a little lemon. Melon is a flavor that kind of comes up commonly. And tree fruit, peach would be the big one. Sometimes apple. So if you stop and think about that for a second, that's like a lot of different types of fruit. So Verdejo is fruity. That's kind of its thing. And it can be a little herbaceous. It can show minerality, but it's really kind of like a more prominent, obvious like fruit thing. Like I said, it is grown elsewhere, but kind of the main region that you want to seek out is Rueda. And I do have some food pairing info on there for you. See, I'm not pouring myself a whole glass. I'm just pouring myself a little taste. So this wine, if you guys happen to be in our wine club, this was the white for, what the hell month is it? April? This is the white for April. This is from one of my absolute favorite wine people. His name is Telmo Rodriguez. Oh yeah, wait. I'm realizing I'm not going to get to talk about Telmo next week in Spanish Red, so I'm going to talk about Telmo right now. Telmo is absolutely one of my favorite people. He makes phenomenal wines. We carry a number of labels from him, so you may have heard me wax on about him at some point. He is the owner of Remy Uri in Rioja, if I've ever waxed on to you about that. So Telmo's thing is that he really likes balanced wines. He likes wines that have acidity, even in kind of like big, rich reds. He manages to get acidity through his winemaking skill. But he also cares very much about getting Spanish wine on the like serious wine map. So with Rueda kind of specifically, a lot of times these wines are, like I said, like cheap, like really cheap. And more serious wine people don't necessarily take wines from Rueda seriously. So Telmo, along with a handful of other wineries, wants to put it on the map and take it a little bit more seriously. So, ooh, cool. Cilantro broccoli hummus. I'm not a cilantro person, but I can imagine that that tastes good to people where cilantro tastes good. Caitlin was saying the honey aspect to it. I do think that it's like that kind of roundness to it. But then it kind of, again, like that thing that I was saying about his wines that like kick in with acidity. I have found over the years that Verdejo is a fun wine for Sauv Blanc people. Not that it's exactly the same by any stretch, but it can appeal to Sauv Blanc or Pinot Grigio people. This one is a little bit rounder and softer in style than I'd think like a Pinot Grigio person might like. But there are other ones that are a little bit lighter. But I love this wine so much because there's definitely like fruit and it kind of wakes your mouth up in that fruitiness. But then there's enough minerality on the finish and it kind of has like really great texture. Personally, it's like all apples and pear to me. A little melony. What else are people thinking? What are you guys thinking? Is anybody drinking other Verdejo than the Bassa? I'm curious. What do people have? I mentioned at the beginning that this wine is a blend of Verdejo and Viura. Viura is, that would be the other, look at that, Karina. We were like on the same wavelength there. Verdejo would be the main varietal to know from Rueda, but Viura would be the other one. Viura is the main white grape in Rioja. And there's not a ton of white in Rioja to speak of, but Viura is kind of the main one. So in Rueda, you're almost always going to see that it's going to be a majority of Verdejo and then a little bit of Viura if they're blending at all. Viura adds a lemony, nutty note to wine and has like pretty high acidity. Palma Real, Verdejo, Rueda. I love. Linda is joining us from Texas, and I adore this fact. And I really love that you went out and got other wines. So I'm really glad. I'm not familiar with that wine. I wonder if it's like ours. It's like a little bit of a mind trip, a little fruit, a little minerals. People are quiet in the chat. I'm curious. What do you guys think? Is it when I picked this wine for Wine Club? Immediately afterwards, everybody was reordering it, which I take as a good sign. Oh, there we go. Okay, yay. What, you all just needed to drink a little bit more. It smelled like a shard. Yeah, that's the apple pear thing. Yes, Kristen. Kristen and I have endeavored together to help her with picking Chardonnay out in blind tastings. Yeah, that's the apple pear thing for sure. Ooh, when I'm talking about rounder, am I talking about dry versus sweet, or body? I'm talking about body. I'm talking about the fact that it kind of like, yes, very smooth, exactly. Like that it feels a little, like you can feel it more, I guess would be the way to kind of describe that. It's not like that kind of, to really draw a comparison, right? This is like a little laser, and it makes your mouth water, and it, kind of is acid to the back of your throat. The Bassa is a little like, fills your mouth a little bit more gently. It kind of covers everything. Oh, see, now you're all giving me so much feedback. I love it so much. Also like a little honeysuckle. Yes, definite minerality on the end. Didn't like it at first, but it's better now. That's cool. I love to see that. Not your favorite. Yeah, but an interesting combo, totally. Yes, I think you probably do taste a little nuttiness. Yeah, I do think you taste the nuttiness. I don't think that's just subjective. what am I thinking of? The power of subjectivity, right? Like, I don't think that it's like, I said it and now you all feel the need to taste it. I think it's generally there. I don't think that this wine has the fennel. This is a list of common flavors and aromas for all Verdejo. This wine I would not really put into the fennel-y kind of category. Yeah, I hope that helps. Have it with tomato-based things and then it totally changes the flavor? Sure, for sure, because tomato has so much acid that when you put tomato and wine together, it kind of definitely changes things a little bit. I love all the feedback. If you guys aren't loving it, ooh, we have patatas bravas in the oven. Oh my God, you guys, that sounds delicious. If this is like not your favorite, or it's like, whoa, there's too much in competition here. First of all, totally cool. You don't have to love the wine. Let's just start there. But I do think, you know, trying it out with a couple different foods might, you know, steer you one direction or another. Yay. Yeah, man, you guys are cooking. I adore this so much. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Oh yeah, Sauv Blanc people, let's even like, I mean, Verdejo's a really good one, but like, let's just wait for Albariño because it might just be your happy place. Before we leave Rueda, the things I think that are worth mentioning is that I would put this in the category of like, not like top tier, but, you know, kind of something a little bit, a step above kind of the plonk, you know, cheap Ruedas that are out there. And it's still only $16, which you know, depending on your budget, maybe $16 is more than you ever want to spend on a bottle of wine, and that's totally fair. But it's not so expensive, I guess, is what I'm saying, is that you can explore Rueda and not hurt your pocketbook. You know, one of our best-selling wines of all time is a wine called Casamaro with an orange label and a big C on it, if that sounds familiar to any of you guys. And that's Verdejo from Rueda that's $10. And I think is super, super delicious. So you can explore that area and see a little bit more variance. I adore Chocolate. Adore. Like, it is my favorite wine. If you ever, I don't know, if you ever want to buy me wine, buy me Chocolate. That was not a plea for you to buy me wine. I love Chocolate, but the variance between them, I mean, if one is bad, that's fine. It's actually bad. But the variance between Chocolinas is not quite as drastic as the variance between Ruedas. So it's kind of nice to know that you can explore an area without having to spend crazy amounts of money. So other questions before we move on? I love that you guys are cooking so much. My darling husband is making caramelized black pepper chicken with bok choy and rice. My daughter has gotten very, very into Top Chef over. She was into it before, but now she's super into it. And they're downstairs cooking, and I'm really getting hungry as you guys are all talking about your food. Oh, is there a reason for the order of the wines today? For sure. So whenever like kind of creating a wine tasting lineup, easy default rule of thumb is to go from lowest alcohol to highest alcohol. So lowest ABV to highest ABV. So in that case, right, Chocolina is kind of always going to win because it's 11%. The Bassa is 13.5, and the Albariño is 13. You know, so you always start with low end. That's so that you can actually taste them. Wines that are a little bit lower in alcohol tend to not have kind of those like over the top bold flavors. And so that's one of the reasons to start with it. You don't get kind of the burn that you get with higher alcohol wines. And you want kind of high acid to start, right? So like the idea of the Chocolate being kind of the palate, wake up, the palate cleanser, it's doing that for us tonight. And then the difference between the other two is really pretty close. Quite honestly, we could have done either of them. I think the Albariño has a little bit more heft to it. So that's the reasoning. Sometimes it's like super obvious. You know, if there's a wine that's, I don't know, 14% or 15% and everything else is in the 12 to 13 range, well, then you want to save that one for the end so that it doesn't kind of wreck your palate. All right, we're going to keep trucking unless anybody has questions. Okay, so we're going to go to Albariño. I think the most interesting thing about Albariño from a wine professional standpoint is that it's the white grape that people know, people here in the States know from Spain. It's the white grape that people reference. And it has grown in a relatively very, very small area. If you'll bear with me, I'll go back to that map for a second. So all of this is green Spain. And then right over here is Rías Baixas. It's this little area very, very close to the water. It gets a ton of rain, and that's where almost all of the Albariño in the country is coming from. So I find that kind of funny, or like not funny, interesting that it kind of like has such a pervasive appeal across the country. If you don't know Albariño, the flavors you'll see, again, a lot of fruit, right? A lot of citrus, a lot of tree. I will spell the word in a second. Yeah, it's on your wine label. So, so lots of different fruit flavors, minerality from a saline perspective again. Oh yeah, and here, it's right here. Although I appear to have misspelled Baixas this time. So one of the really cool things about this area, that's a picture of the area. So on the other side of these mountains in the background is the ocean. So in this area, smells like New Zealand Sauv Blanc. I'm not surprised. In this area, similar to the Basque region, they're very close to the water. But here, instead of kind of like wind, here it's fog. It's kind of like San Francisco, or kind of like the Bay Area. The fog kind of rolls in, and it has actual salt crystals in the fog that then land on the grapes. So you can get saltiness. I don't think it's in this wine, so don't feel like I'm telling you that you have to taste salt. I'm just saying that it can happen. This is a picture of a different vineyard. This is a vineyard that I visited, but I just wanted to show you guys what the trellises look like. I was able to walk under the trellises. Like, they are really high up, and the reason for that is that it's super rainy here. So they don't want the vines hanging out and rotting. They want to help them, be able to breathe and not just total mildew and rot. I smell flowers, but I don't taste them. Is that a thing? It's totally a thing, and it's totally a thing with this wine. I 100% vintage after vintage after vintage, I taste this wine, and I smell flowers, but I don't necessarily taste them. Right? It triggers a salt-like response on the tongue. Exactly, Meg. It totally does, right? And then that's the acidity. But also there is, actually, I would take back my statement of you don't have to find salt. If you guys are finding salt, I think that's fair game tonight. I definitely am tasting it. Maybe it's me saying the word salt over and over again, but I'm definitely getting it more. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that New Zealand Sauv Blanc people are digging it. It's not as like super prominently grapefruity as Marlborough Sauv Blancs are, but I think that citrus and that acid do appeal. Tell me if you guys, what do you all think? I know some of you maybe are even from New Zealand, perhaps. What do you think? I'm curious to see what you guys think. So Coniston Albari, fun facts about them are that they are a co-op of growers, and they started the same year that Rio Speicius became a DO, became one of those appellations. They started that same year. All of their grapes are grown on estates owned by the people who own the company. So it's not like one person. It is kind of it is a collective, but it is a way that they are able to keep their wine relatively affordable. So, oh, I'm so glad we got official confirmation from our kiwi, our local kiwi, that it qualifies. But yeah, totally. Like, I do think that it's kind of a salty thing. I was saying about the Coniston Albari that they can kind of keep prices a little bit more regulated, which I guess is a nice time for me to mention. Like, before the pandemic, you know, the thing that I thought was going to be the most challenging part of 2020 was going to be the tariffs on European wine. Those are obviously way less important than what's happening out in the world, but that doesn't make them less real. So this is just a time to say that Spanish wines, unfortunately, are starting to go up in price. And it's always been a place that I have steered people when they want, you know, interesting, exciting wines and don't want to spend too much money. Spain has always been my go-to. And now I'm starting to see, you know, wines that we've carried for years kind of break that 20 or 25 threshold. And I'm like, that, but the wine didn't, you know, didn't get better. It's the same wine. It just now costs more. So don't forget to vote in November, because where that all went. I'm really glad that you really like it and you like Albariños in general. Are there Albariño drinkers in the crowd? I'm curious. Is this something that you guys already know, or is it new to people? It is really good with scallops. It is really good with seafood. Actually, let me go back to I'll go back to that slide for a hot second, because I know I kind of jumped us forward to get to show you guys the picture of the trellises. It's, you'll know, I do talk about seafood a lot, and there's just no getting around that part of it with Spanish whites. But if you want to get want to roast a whole chicken or get a rotisserie chicken from the store, it's really great with that. This one in particular, I like with like a hearty green salad with maybe even some apples sliced into it. This particular Albariño can even hold up to something like blue cheese. So if you wanted to go with that kind of salad, it would be great. Oh, great. It's new to some people. It's not new to other people. You've always stayed away from whites. Well, how's that going? Cool. People are learning it. Yeah, it does. It has so much. Karina's saying that it's similar to Garganega, which is the white grape in an area in Italy called Soave. And it does have a lot of similarity to it. If you guys have had the Skya white that we carry, that's Garganega. It does have a lot of similarity. People who don't drink many whites but are enjoying this, well, that feels really good. I'm so glad. Yay. How many do we have right now? How many Albariños do I have in the store? Not a ton. I would probably say we have 3 Spanish and 1 from Napa. That feels accurate to me. I actually have, oh good, yeah, poach those scallops in butter and have it with this wine. The picture of the trellised vines are from a winery called Joe Ferrero, and we always have his Albariño on our shelves basically from the second I got back from that trip. After having met him and seen his beautiful vineyards, I knew I had to carry his wines. I wanted to make sure that I kept the overall price point of all 3 wines, doable for folks. So I didn't put the Joe Ferrero in our mix tonight. The Joe Ferrero is in the mid-20s, maybe high 20s, but it is fabulous. So if you I'm talking specifically to Carol, but this is true for anybody. If you know that you like Albariño or you want to explore more and that's not outside of your price range, I do recommend the Joe Ferrero so much because you can like really understand salt. How different is the Napa one? That's a great question. It's not that different. It's kind of amazing. It's from a winery called Hendry. Some of you might know Hendry from other things. They make an amazing Pinot Noir. And there's a little bit of Albariño grown in California. And for the most part, it tends to lean more towards the fruit side and less of the mineral side. But the Hendry Albariño is kind of a dead ringer. I've turned a lot of it's weird to go this direction, but a lot of Spanish wine drinkers onto the Hendry. So it's another one that I think is cool and worth exploring. Yeah, so I think I answered that question about do other countries grow these varietals. We are growing Albariño here in the US. There is some Albariño grown in Australia. Ooh, it's good with underground goat sausage. Yes, that sounds delicious. I mean, honestly, I feel like any of these would be good with charcuterie. But I'm glad this is going so well. That's kind of that saltiness, I bet, is super tasty with it. Albariño is the most widely grown of the three that we're tasting tonight. Verdejo, pardon me, there's not that much of it grown elsewhere. There's a little bit of experimentation in California. People like it for its acidity, so they're growing it to like blend it with things, but it's not that common. And Hundred Bizuri, no, like I haven't seen it. I've not heard of it being grown outside of Basque. So yeah. Wondering what scotty food this would pair well with. Ooh, well, I guess it depends on how strictly scotty we want to be, but Albariño specifically, like I'm thinking, you know, we grow lots of apples. It's really good with cheese. It's really good with cheese. I would say less our beloved aged cheddars and more like Hidden Springs, fresh sheep's milk cheese, Carr Valley's Marisa, those kind of softer cheese, Door County Chev, those kinds of things. Yeah, I would say that would kind of be good with it. To go back, I don't know if you're curious, but like this in fish fry, super delicious. Those bubbles cut through the fat of the fried fish. It's absolutely fantastic. And the basa, like brats on the grill, straight up. That roundness is going to be super, super delicious with, you know, so that's pretty scotty, right? I did a good job. Let's see, what else did oh, you had it with Marisa and it was delicious. I love it. That's so great because in my head that made sense. Apricot Kringle, I love it more. Do I have recommendations for the next Chocolina, Verdejo, and Albariño bottles to try? That's a fabulous question. So I really do hold up the Amistoy as kind of the benchmark of Chocolina. We tend to carry one or two other white Chocolinas at any time. So I do recommend trying a still one just to kind of see what you like, see if you like it more or less. I have had some customers tell me that they hate the idea of effervescence. So, you know, maybe that's not. A fish fry rack? Yeah, Carrie, I was saying the Amistoy. No, Mackenzie's saying fish fry and Albariño, so like go for it. I do think that like any of them would work, but if you're gonna have some wine open tomorrow and you happen to be getting fish fry, or maybe making fish fry, I would start here perhaps. The bubbles are just great with fried food. So to go back to Meg's question of other ones that I would recommend, we carry one right now from Zola that is a still version of Chocolina, so I would recommend trying that. Drink the whole bottle. I mean, drink the full bottle. Like, don't apologize for it. If you wanted to try a different Verdejo, I think it depends on what you liked or didn't like about this wine. So I would say if you wanted kind of the more fruity, easygoing, more Sauv Blanc-like version, I would recommend the Casamaro. That's the one I mentioned that's like $10 on our shelf. If you wanted to continue down the minerality path, we have one called Tres Olmos that is from Old Vine Verdejo. The vines grow and they're like this big. Here, I'm gonna make myself big. The vines are like yay big off the ground because they're like 100 years old. And the Tres Olmos is another really great one to try. So kind of depending on which direction you want to take that. And then from an Albariño standpoint, I mean, I did wax on about Do Ferrero because I adore them. It's a little jump. It's a significant jump in price. We'll just say that. But I do think that it's worth it. If you wanted to kind of stay in this price range, the one that we carry is from Bergens. And they're also super delightful, and it's a little bit more fruity than this one. So that might be good. Karina was suggesting try the Amistoy Rosé. Yeah, I would say that if you want to learn, you know, if you're just like open or like, hey, what's up? Tell me about Spanish wine. Things that we're not going to cover in these two classes are Spanish Rosé, Spanish Sparkling, and Spanish Dessert Wine. So you could definitely get some Amistoy Rosé. It's phenomenal. So there are lots of different directions that you can go. Can I spell the name of the Albariño that I just mentioned? So it's Do Ferrero is one of them. Oh, please don't be embarrassed to ask me to type things up, guys. No, I'm happy to. So Do Ferrero is the trellised one that you saw pictures of. That is, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it's in like the high 20s. The less expensive one is Bergens. I hope that helps. About Bass Cake, what was the question? What's the in-stock Spanish white you'd recommend with Bass Cake? So the tricky part with Bass Cake is that it is, you know, it's not a super sweet dessert, but it is dessert. And Spanish whites have so much acidity that they kind of, those two things don't play so nicely in the playground. But if you wanted a white, the great Godeo that I mentioned at the very beginning as kind of like the second to Albariño in popularity, we have one, I guess actually we have two in stock right now. Godeo is very soft. It is like, similar in mouthfeel to Chardonnay, but it doesn't have those oaky, buttery components. It's just the softness. So it's lower in acidity, and it has lots of pretty prominent apple flavors to it. So Godeo would be the one that I would say. So I'm sorry to say that I want you to buy more wine, but it wouldn't be one of these three. I think these three have a little too much acidity, and I think that they might get kind of weird with Bass Cake. But it's Bass Cake, so it's always going to be delicious. Found that the Albariño is great with Parmesan. I love it. That makes me so happy. And Kristen is giving a shout out for Pedro Jimenez sherry and Bass Cake, which I fully agree with. But if Meg doesn't want sweet sherry, I can understand that. So if you guys have lingering questions, let's get them out right now. We are coming up right on time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's schedules. I really do appreciate you guys joining us. We have the next couple of classes planned out already, Spanish Reds, and next week. And then we have Sauvignon Blanc class. That'll be Sauvignon Blanc from around the world. And that's in a few weeks. That's going to be May 21st. If there are other suggestions that you guys have for things you want to learn, you know, if we're being real, I think that these classes are probably going to continue through the summer. I don't see a world in which we're going to be able to gather together at Table Wine in person, which means, you know, our friends in Chicago and our friends in Texas and my mom in Pennsylvania can join us. So like that's a good silver lining. So if there are things that you guys want to learn about, I'm really all ears. Let's see. Sherry sounds great with Bass Cake. Absolutely. I'm so glad. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Oh, I love this so much. You guys are absolutely amazing. Any favorite Spanish whites outside the ones we've covered today? So I would say that at Table Wine, we don't have a huge variety. I would say, I don't know, off the top of my head, I want to say we have about 10 different Spanish whites. I adore them all. I really do. I said at the beginning of the class, like, this is like my favorite subject. And I didn't talk a lot about my trip from 2 years ago because I'm not featuring those wines today. But so much of my trip was in Galicia, in that northwestern part of Spain, that I adore them. So I would say, honestly, like Nathan and Sydney, like anything we carry, because I just, like, I love them. Okay, so Midwest wine is worth drinking. If so, should we do a class about it? Ooh, sassy. Online orders, Molly mentioned in class. As long as you tell us what class it was mentioned in, 9 times out of 10, I'm the one filling your orders, so I'll know. But, you know, say that it was Spanish Whites class and we'll do it. Let's see what else. You would ask your 89-year-old dad to join in too, Linda? This is amazing. I hope that if you guys are ever able to come to Madison in the future, I would love to meet you. This would be amazing. Greek wines is definitely an option. Ooh, second the Midwest wines. Ooh, there's like competing things. Oh, guys, this is so sweet. I love it. Oh, Karina, I'm so glad. I know that it's not exactly the same, but it's nice to get to talk about wine, right? And, you know, cook some patatas bravas, hell yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing Greek wine coming up a lot. Okay, so to answer the question about when will the wines be posted, my new format is the Friday before the class, I post the wines. So whatever that is, the 5/21, I'm sorry, I'm like not great with calendars in my head. That would be the 15th. I'm thinking May 15th. I will post, I send out the email, and then that information is available on the event. And so they will be available 6 days in advance. I'm hopeful that that gives everybody a chance to get the wines. If you're finding out that that's not enough time, do let me know. But you know, there's a lot. Oh, you plan to be there for graduation weekend, right? Oh, you guys, it's you guys. So these really lovely people scheduled a graduation party with us for next weekend, and we weren't able to have it. Well, I love that we're connecting this way, so thank you. Can I post a picture of the labels that people don't? Oh, like when I announce the wines, can I post a picture of labels? Yes, Kristen, I'm happy to help. I'm so glad. Oh, yay. I love that people love the Chocolina. Oh, thank you guys. You're all so wonderful. You guys are amazing. So at this point, guys, I'm going to say goodnight. I love you all so very, very much. If you haven't already signed up for Spanish Reds and you have time next Thursday evening, come drink wine with us because it'll be super great. Or, you know, watch this later. You can share this link with people so they can watch it anytime. So thank you guys. I really, oh, thank you, Chicago, and thank you everywhere. You guys are amazing. All hearts, guys. All hearts. Love you.